Good Monday evening. I'm Lawrence Sam, and this is Money for the Win. Here's the preview for today's episode. How Money Works, Part 2. Really excited. I was excited about the last episode, and even more so for this one, because I'm going to bring it all together and bring it home for you, okay? Money for the Win is this concept that, as I've developed in my career, I've had two parallel paths. One as a cognitive behavioral therapist and another as a financial entrepreneur. And my hope is, with Money for the Win, to bring these two careers together to the benefit of everybody who's able to watch and view this video. You see, I found out over the course of my life that money is a game. There are rules, there are winners, and there are losers. And I want you to Money for the Win. Okay, so welcome. Money for the Win and the things that I share in these videos are just my opinion. It's not the only way to achieve success. It's just based on some of my experiences and some of my mentors and readings and teachings that I've been able to benefit from. So before I get into the content, let me share a little bit about thanks. I like to start with an attitude of gratitude. And the funniest thing to share is I'm thankful for my mistakes. It's kind of a mixed kind of thanks because my mistakes were painful, and it's kind of the thing I look back at and kind of wish I had done differently. But I am thankful for mistakes because part of my perspective is we learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes. Think about that. If you were participating, let me think. Okay, let's just take some sports, for example, football game. When you win, you celebrate. When you lose, you start to analyze. You start to say, what did I do? You work harder at improving. So when you kind of take these two things, if your focus is growth and improvement, now don't get me wrong, you don't want to go out with the mindset that I want to lose, that I want to make mistakes. However, they do tend to promote personal development, growth, and improvement. So although these aren't things I ever sought out or desired, I can be thankful for them because they did prompt certain changes. And as a matter of fact, my most recent focus on an entrepreneurial endeavor was prompted by a very bad kind of outcome. I wouldn't say it was a mistake, but it was a situation that just was really bad. But rather than really kind of wallowing in that pain, I was able to kind of use that as an impetus to move on closer to my dreams. Okay, so welcome. Money for the Win is about being able to share financial literacy and, more importantly, take action that will improve your life, the life of others, and the lives of the people you love. So I do want to encourage you to like this video, subscribe to this channel, watch this video for at least 10 minutes or more, okay? And rewatch. If you find value in this, you might find more and more as you rewatch it. And more importantly, share it with other people. Let other people know about this. I think in our society, kind of growing up, most of us aren't really taught money. We're taught how to spend it, we're taught how to work for it, but not really taught how to make it work for us. And yet that's what this episode's about, how money works. Right now we're up to 21 subscribers. I'd like to get up to 30, okay? Let's try to get up to 30. Let's see what we can do this week. All right, so let's get started. On the thumbnail, right? I had that big old fan. Yeah, it's plastic. It's not paper. This isn't real money, all right? All right, last week I left off, or I talked a little bit about cash flow. Right? The idea of this bowl that cash flows into your bowl, you pour it out, it has a hole in it that leaks, and there's also a faucet. Okay, so I didn't have the illustration, so I do now. So one thing I do want to talk about, so income, expenses, assets, and debt. But the type of income is active and passive. So you see income comes into active income is like your job or things you do or commission or whatever, however you do to work to earn income. Passive is kind of that as you sleep at night money. So interest, dividends, stock returns, appreciation on real estate, and so forth. So again, when I mentioned cash flow last week, The idea is to through your active income, acquire assets which generate passive income until the point that your passive income exceeds your monthly expenses. So your monthly income exceeds. So that's financial independence. So if you see the arrows here, expenses is money out of your control, and debt actually creates passive expensive. So assets create passive income, debt creates passive expenses. All right, that's just kind of a recap, expansion a little bit on last week. So if you continue to start setting your mindset on understanding what you're doing with your money, as you educate yourself, your decisions become more in your control. And that's really the most important part. When I use the word wealth or rich, there's a subjective element to it. And your heightened awareness of it, of your finances, is really what we're going for, because control over your money is better than money control over you. All right. So when I talk about the majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, majority of Americans wouldn't have $1,000 saved just kind of ready in case of an emergency. Majority of Americans aren't properly preparing for retirement. Just those three areas, if I could help set you on a path, if that's what you want, then I'd accomplish my mission. But nevertheless, wealth and riches really are an expression of our values and what's important to us. I like to say money's not the most important thing in the world, but it definitely affects everything that is important. So in my personal life, for example, having a certain level of income, having a certain level of assets, this allows me and my family, the people I love, to have a certain level of security, kind of sleep well at night factor, a certain amount of charity and thinking about others. It also allows us a certain level of comfort and enjoyment and pleasure, and that's really fun. It's really nice to have the level of worry and concern I have dropping on a regular basis, and then being able to go out and enjoy it. And I started this with an attitude of gratitude, and I try to start every day with an attitude of gratitude. And so it's just really a matter of appreciating, and hopefully that this is actually part of that. My appreciation for what I've received, I'm able to share here through our YouTube channel, and hopefully it has that impact on you. All right, so what I want to get into is what I call the wealth formula. So again, wealth can be defined in different ways. There are people who are minimalist, and the whole idea there is to really be conscious and being intentional. And I shared this in a different video about the idea of intentionality with our finances. So if money is kind of life put into a solid form, you really want to be intentional about how you spread your life around or what your life is focused on. And a lot of times people, if they stop and think about it, if they're struggling financially, there is some sort of disconnect between their values and what they say is important and the behavior that they have regarding their finances. Okay, so getting on to the wealth formula. The wealth formula is money, time, return on investment, inflation, and tax. The influence of these 5 items is what defines wealth. Okay? So, money. We talked a little bit about that, what money is in types of income. Time. Now, this is what's critical. So, when you put your money in a bank, so if you get free checking or you have a savings account, why would the bank take your money and give you free checking? When I ask a lot of my clients this, they kind of search around for answers like, well, I'm a student. Why they gave them free checking? I say, no, those are ways to qualify for the free checking. But why would a bank give you free checking? So the answer is they make use of the money when you're not making use of it. So when you really start to think about the flow of money, so your money is in a checking account, they make use of it every day. And what are some of the things they do? Well, they do auto loans. they do home loans, and they do credit cards, just for some examples. And when they do those, they charge people interest. They charge people for the use of the money that they actually didn't have. You just put it in there. Okay? So one of the ideas is stop doing that. Stop using the banks and start doing it yourself. So investments, particularly mutual funds, are a really great way to do that. This video isn't about investing in mutual funds, but about this concept of time and return on investment. Okay, so the role of time, I might have to go through this in the opposite order, really. Let's go to return of investment. Okay, so the return on investment is the value, what is being paid for that money. All right. Oh, one thing I do want to say is I might get I'm trying to keep it simple, and it's kind of a challenge, right? Some of these things seem intimidating. So again, my target audience are those folks, the 70% of people, 80% of people living paycheck to paycheck, in over their head on debt, not properly planning for retirement, just kind of money doesn't seem to be working for them. Doesn't seem to be winning. They're not winning. However, I think anybody can benefit from these videos. Nevertheless, I keep it simple. If it seems too simple to you, I still encourage you to just share the information with other people. All right. The other part of it is if it seems too complicated. If it seems complicated to you, don't be discouraged. Rewatch the video, look up some of these terms on your own. Understand that your understanding wherever you are can always improve through effort. Just take some time and effort, and over time, just like I say, driving a car. The very first time you sat behind a wheel, you had already read up on some books, maybe did a driver's training class, and still you had to practice. And then now, if you drive, I'm sure you're a pretty good driver. Okay. So what is a return on investment? So let's look at the bank account we were talking about, savings account. They pay you interest. If you bank with the major brick and mortar banks, they're paying you very little interest, less than 0.1%. But some of the online banks pay much better, 1%, 2%. There were a time in the 80s you could get 8%, 12% money market funds. But nowadays, that's just not the scenario. So that's actually a really bad place to put your money when you want to grow it. Okay? When you need to have access to cash, sure, it's a good place. But when you want to have a good return on investment, you want to seek elsewhere. Okay, so why is return on investment important? Well, let's go to inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is kind of a constant leak in value of your dollar. So if you saved up a bunch of cash in your bedroom or dug a hole and in your backyard and just let it sit there and pull it out a year later, it is actually worth less. Inflation right now is approximately 2%. So that means year after year after year, even though the actual number of dollars you have is the same, the buying power of that starts to shrink. So just think about it. I remember back in 1999, the last time I saw gasoline under $1 a gallon. Well, it's now, I just bought gas today, so $3.49, $3.39, something like that, $3.39. I remember during kind of oil crisis a decade ago, it was pushing $5 a gallon for me. Okay, so that's inflation. So we have to constantly fight inflation. Our buying power is constantly being eroded. So I don't know if you knew that. If you knew that inflation existed, if you understood that yes, as time goes on, your ability to maintain your lifestyle is constantly being eroded just by inflation. Okay, so this is why return on investment is very important. The first goal is to beat inflation. You want your money to grow. Did I explain how money grows? Okay, well, you want your money to grow at least to keep its value. Okay, let's go back to the bank, right? The bank uses your money and then gets a return on the investment from your money. So your goal now is to get a better return on investment for yourself. And that's using mutual funds as my first recommendation, and owning your own home. Okay, so those are the two biggest things you can do to improve your own situation. All right, now the one that I had skipped over, time, I want to get into now because I talked about return on investment. And this is what's really awesome. So let's say your goal is to have $1 million retirement. Nowadays, again, because of inflation, the recommendation by professionals is actually multiple millions, so 2 million or more. But let's go with this $1 million. Okay, so here we have the goal of $1 million. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the impact of time. So here, it's a number of years. You're putting away a certain amount of money every month, and your return on investment is 10%. Now, where are you going to get 10%? Well, the stock market has averaged 10% per year over the past, let's say 90 years, but don't quote me on that one, okay? I'm thinking it's about a 90-year history, okay? So, you see right here at the cutoff, if you have 40 years, you don't need until you have 40 years to accumulate to earn this $1 million. You know how much it takes? $175 a month. Okay? That's the power of time. Now, this goes on, it goes on, and you see in 5-year increments. If you have 40 years, if you have 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, and 5 years. Look at that. How small the amount of money needed is when you have time on your side. But as that time goes further and further, look how much it takes. Look at that difference. If you only have 5 years to accumulate $1 million at 10% rate of interest, return on investment, take about $13,000 a month. And the thing is, it has the other part. That average really works over longer periods of time. Like last year, the stock market was about 20%, maybe 29%. But there were years before it was negative. And even though the majority of years it's rising, putting time on your side is how you get the nice average out of it. Okay? So I like to say, when is the best time to start now? Now. Get started. Okay? It's a lot easier that way. Okay. Taxes. So this is the last. So you had your income and the amount of money you're putting aside for a length of time, the higher rate return on investment, understanding that inflation is constantly eroding your buying power, and then tax. What happens is we have a tax code that's written to encourage certain behavior versus other behavior. Okay? If you think about when you earn money, you have an income tax. When you spend money, you have a sales tax. And when you die, you have So anyway, okay. So the role of taxes is you have to look at certain places to put your money that reduce your tax burden. So what are encouraged is, so income tax tends to be one rate, but capital gains tax is actually a lower rate. So what is capital gains tax? Capital gains is the money you make when you sell assets, stocks, typically, okay? They're taxed lower than income. The more money you make from stocks, mutual funds, the less taxed you are than from the money you make employed. Okay? So the same thing also with housing. We get housing when we purchase a property. So we call a homeowner even though we have a huge debt on it, right? So it's not a paid off home, but we're a homeowner. So you have a mortgage. Mortgage is a loan specifically for homes. We pay interest on that, and that interest is actually a tax break. So we get benefits out of setting ourselves up for financial success. So you want to kind of make those choices. All right. Well, I think that concludes our episode of part 2 for how money works. Please subscribe, like this video, share it with others, post it on Facebook, text it to other people, watch it again, rewatch, and view it for 10 minutes or more. So today I talk a little bit about cash flow, about defining what wealth and being rich means to you, and sharing the wealth formula. I'd like you to comment below on anything you found of value. If anything was unclear, I know I do my videos in one take. I try to have it kind of as if we were sitting here having a conversation. But there's sometimes I might bring up something that's not clear or I don't finish a thought. So feel free to comment or ask me a question. I'd also like to ask you to post a comment. Is there some topic or element that you'd like covered that I haven't covered yet? All right. Next week, next Monday, I am going to be doing a season 1 recap. So come back in where I take all the episodes that I've already created for this season and highlight how they all interact and come together. Well, it's been my pleasure sharing these thoughts and ideas with you tonight. As always, I encourage you to be rich and enrich others.